Hey, this is episode number 32 of the UpRev Ninja podcast, and this is your host, Tom Hudson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the UpRev Ninja podcast. If this is your first time listening, thanks for joining us. This show is produced each week with the single intent of discovering the tips, tricks, hacks, and lessons learned from our guests that has catapulted them into living the best version of themselves. Join your host, Tom Hudson, as he continues his search for the best methods to uprev his life. Now, let's dive into the show.
Today on the UpRev Ninja podcast, I interview Lori Cheek. Lori Cheek, architect turned entrepreneur, founder, and CEO of Checked, a mobile dating app that makes misconnections obsolete. Lori, a Shark Tank veteran, was recently listed as the digital dating disruptor and one of top 10 CEOs to watch. A University of Kentucky architectural graduate, Lori is no longer building structures, she's now building relationships. Welcome, Lori Cheek, to the UpRev Ninja podcast. Hey, today on the UpRev Ninja podcast, I have Lori Cheek, hailing all the way from New York City. How you doing today, Lori?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
So I'm just up the road up in Boston from you, so not too far. So I've already read your bio out to the audience today, but I'd love to hear it in your own words. Just, like who are you? How'd you get to where you're at today?
So in a shorter version of the long story, I moved from Kentucky to New York City about 20 years ago and, was just completely overwhelmed after coming from a town knowing absolutely every single person to this city of 8 million people where it just seemed impossible to grasp how I was going to end up making a new social circle. So, through my day-to-day, it sort of became a mission to figure out how to break the ice and make connections with people. And I moved up here to be an architect, so I practiced architecture and design for nearly 15 years. And one night I was out to dinner with another architect, and he did something that inspired me. It was one of those light bulb moments that I couldn't stop thinking about, and my life has been turned inside out ever since.
Yeah, I read about what that is, that story. Do you want to share that with us?
Oh, absolutely. So, I had been to a design party with this guy, and he was just a friend, but a handsome guy. We went to dinner across the street from the party afterwards, and I had excused myself from the table to go to the little girl's room. And when I came back, I guess he'd spotted an attractive woman at a table nearby, and he scribbled on the back of his business card, "Want to have dinner?" And as we were leaving the restaurant, he slipped her that card, and the two of them ended up going on a date, and I left the restaurant with this idea. And the idea sort of had answered my situation of curiosity of how to break the ice to people in the real world without doing something totally awkward. So I immediately started brainstorming how to remove the business out of the business card and create this deck of cards around dating. So that was sort of the moment in time and the idea that was inspired by his gesture to this woman for his date, but with his business card.
Right. Yeah, no, it's I used to carry business cards around for a very similar, so maybe 5 to 7 years ago. I don't know. How long ago did this happen?
That was in February of 2008.
I wonder if I read the story because 2010 I started carrying business cards and doing something similar. So I must have read the story at somewhere, and so it's funny how things like that kind of turn around, and it's what's funnier though, just that 15 seconds of your life, how it's changed the course of the direction that you're taking, and who you've become today, right?
Absolutely. I mean, if you told me 10 years ago I was going to own a dating business, I would have told you were out of your mind. But
yeah,
here I am.
Especially in New York City. I mean, it's just slightly competitive there. So
yeah, but I think we've got an interesting twist on the game. So that's our hands up towards the competition.
That's great. Well, let's talk a little about you, Lori. You've kind of covered, come from Kentucky to, the Big Apple, and, just the being overwhelmed with how many people were there and trying to figure out how to build that social circle. And obviously, I'm going to make a huge assumption here, but I don't think it's that huge. You've probably got a pretty healthy social circle nowadays, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's crazy now that that city that I arrived in 20 years ago, I can't leave the house in New York without running into someone I know. So it's not one of those places anymore where I can leave in my pajamas or not having my hair brushed. You know,
Right.
the chances are likely that I'm going to see more than one person I know when I walk out the door.
Well, so going through that transformation over the last 20 years, have you ever had, what's kind of held you back, and has it been something consistent, like embarrassment, shame, or anything like that?
That's held me back from
just becoming, who you are today, like, the best version of who you are.
It's sort of crazy because I feel like when you pick your career, when you start college, it's sort of like you're building this path that you're meant to be on. And, I went to architecture school for 5 years and moved to New York to become an architect. And, after 15 years, the funny thing was every single day I would go to work at 9:15 and I would have my bags ready to leave the office at 5:59. And there was something about that. I was determined to live, but I felt like my job wasn't giving me joy. And no matter how cool of a job I had in the design world, I would get in trouble every day for being late. I'd still come at 9:15. It's like I didn't want to be there. And, I feel blessed that that guy slipped that card to that woman that day because it's turned my life around and I've never been happier. So I feel like it was more about that path that I was meant to be on that was holding me back from what I really wanted to be, which was an entrepreneur.
Right. Yeah. I don't know, what was that transformation like in itself, going from a steady paycheck, 9 to 6 hours, stuff like that, to, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and diving into that. How was that transformation for you?
Well, in the beginning, I didn't really know what I was doing building a business, and I just kept walking around for a year just telling people about the idea. And finally, everybody just kept saying 2 weeks later, or when I told them this is a genius idea, you've got to make it happen. Or last week, I saw the love of my life on the subway. I wanted one of those cards that you're meant to invent. So, I heard it so many times that everyone else was on board with me that it was a genius idea. So finally, I got a couple of guys to help get the business off the ground, all the business stuff that I didn't know because I hadn't been to business school. I just had this design background. And within a year, we had launched the business, which we launched in May of 2010. And I kept working my full-time job for about 6 months while trying to build Cheeked at the same time. And it was just nearly impossible. A couple of months in, we got covered in the style section of the New York Times. And it said, move over Match.com. This is the next generation of online dating.
Wow.
And then we got a phone call from Oprah Winfrey's studio wanting a deck of these cards and an interview with me. And I just knew I had gold in my hands at this point. So, I just kept bulldozing forward. When I'd go to work, I'd bring my little mini MacBook with me. And I had this huge Mac that they'd given me at my design job. And I would sit there with my computer in front of this huge like $4,000 Mac, and everybody was like, why don't you use your big computer?
Right.
I was like, well, all my database of all my clients is on this one. I've got so much information here. It's just easier for me to keep things organized. But meanwhile, I was sort of cheating on my employer at the time because I was trying to run my business while at my full-time job. So it was overwhelming. And one day I just made the decision, I'm going to go all the way with this thing. And I did.
Wow. So along the way, it sounds like you had a lot of folks kind of, telling you this is definitely a gold mine. Is there anything that kind of sticks out as a best piece of advice that you got along the way?
Yes. And I think the best advice I've ever gotten was surround yourself with who you want to become.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
The people around you are, very influential. And to have a proper support system around you, I think, is crucial, especially when you're doing something that's so challenging.
Yeah, no, and that in itself can be challenging, I think, because at times, I think it was Jim Rohn or James Rohn, you become the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And
right.
And what's the other quote? You don't want to be the smartest person in the room. So, right.
I love both of those quotes.
Yeah. And, they've come up on the show once before. And I think one of the key challenges that you get faced with is, if you're always trying to improve yourself, which is the whole idea of the show, at some point you do have to kind of exit the group, because at some point with some groups, you do kind of become that smartest person in the room, and you're like, I need to move on. And those transitions can be difficult and, heartfelt at times, I think. So,
yeah, exactly.
Well, what do you do nowadays to, to try to stay on your game? Meditation, journaling, anything like that?
I'm not great at meditation except when I'm at Trader Joe's.
Okay.
No, it's crazy in New York.
Yeah.
Like that's where I start deep breathing and my serious meditation. But other than that, once I started my own lifestyle, so I'm my own boss, no one's looking for me in the day for the most part. I found fitness as a stress relief, and it's become one of the major priorities in my life. And I feel like, you've got one body, you've got one mind, and even the confidence factor of feeling fit and strong, fitness is just, that is my meditation.
That's great. And, I was just talking to someone about this myself, actually. When I don't make it to the gym a couple of days in a row, my agitation level tends to go up. And I think it's purely because when I go to the gym, it is meditative because I'm not thinking about anything else. So, I'm getting that mental break, but also, exerting all that physical, physical energy that's in my body. So I totally understand that.
Yeah, just this morning I took a yoga class in Astor Place at 8:30 this morning.
Yeah.
So it's outdoors, but it was crazy because for 1 hour, we're trying to do all this breathing and thinking and focusing, and there was garbage trucks, sirens, just
right.
It was insane. And like, there was something sort of peaceful about it though. It was interesting.
Okay. So this just popped in my mind. I have to ask. So do you ever make it back to your hometown in Kentucky?
Hell yeah.
All right. Okay. So what's that like though? I mean, was it a small town?
So I was raised in a town of 2,000 people.
Okay. All right.
So there were like 76 people in my graduating class.
Yeah. You and I are very similar in these regards, by the way. I'm from northern Texas. So yeah.
So you know what it's like.
Absolutely. And I ask because, you hear this on sitcoms and stuff. And I've lived in San Diego and I've lived in other cities. But when I go back to the country, like it's so quiet at night. It's like I can't sleep.
Well, yeah, and it's wild to go back because it's that small town mentality where you're crossing people on the road in your car and everybody raises their finger on their steering wheel,
Yes.
which means hello, because you know who that is probably.
Absolutely, yeah. I remember when I first moved up north here, I was still in that habit of just waving at people, just to wave, and someone thought I was flipping them off, or maybe not, because I got flipped off regardless. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I should probably watch what I'm doing now. So, well,
Yeah.
what about just experiences? I mean, being in the dating business and everything. What experiences do you do that or to your clients or anything that kind of help them understand who they are and push them out of their comfort zone?
So I actually don't know a lot of my clients because now we don't have those cards anymore.
Right.
We've pivoted into this Bluetooth dating app. So instead of handing a card to someone, the app sort of makes that connection for you. So you don't even have to walk up to the person, but it's still meant to connect you right then and right there. So maybe there's someone in the gym or the cafe or even in the subway. It works because it's Bluetooth and doesn't require cell or Wi-Fi signal. So yeah, I don't actually know a lot of my clients, and we do try to have events about once a month in New York where we get the singles together, they download the app and they can meet each other at the event. So, I mean, I'm not so much the matchmaker as I am created a technology that helps match people.
It's not a bad thing at all. So yeah, it's Years ago, again, I've got friends in New York, and I haven't visited in a while. But a lot of these apps, I'm like, wow, it's so different there than it is. The town I live in is about 20,000 people. So like Tinder, for example. Actually, my wife, she and I met on Tinder. So, but a town of 20,000 people in a couple of days, you've gone through everyone. But New York, you set it to, I don't know, the smallest, 30 feet, like Bluetooth or whatever. And there's just so many people through that you can run throughout the day, So.
Well, it was so cool. One day I was on a flight and I had passed someone and made a connection on my own app. And I messaged the person. I was so excited. Yeah. I was in Long Beach, California. And I said something like, "Where are you flying to?" And the guy said, "I think I'm on your flight." And
oh, wow.
What row? And he said 5. I think I was on 14. I was like, "I'll come say hello when we can undo our seatbelts." But that was pretty cool.
That's really awesome. Yeah. And, I think the other good thing about this stuff is it does, you just create a lot of friendships out of this as well, which I think is, fantastic, being able to connect with all these different people. So even if it's not a romantic, it doesn't go down that path. Just being able to build relationships is, pretty vital to our existence, I believe. Well, so
exactly. And I always say that building friendships, they often last longer than relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what do you, you personally, what do you have for, personal habits? You've already talked about, the physical side, but what do you do that kind of pushes you every day to grow as a person?
A friend of mine the other day, it was funny because she said to me, like, when you get lazy, do you ever blah, 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 something? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because I don't get lazy. And there's so much I want to accomplish in the day. I mean, even outside of business and fitness and, there's this whole social being inside of me that just wants to go hang out with people. And
right.
I want to see movies. So even if I didn't get a good night's sleep or I'm tired, there's something that I do to myself that just pushes me out the door. And I don't know. I just think that a lot of it has to do with this twist I had in my life, because I have never been happier. And that my scheduling that allows me to have the time for fitness that I have every day. And I think it's just such adrenaline, and it's a cycle. It's a really healthy circle that I found myself in, and it's all about that independence that's given me this opportunity.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. I've been in that realm before, and just I don't know, what's the term, lifestyle designers or something like that. I think lifestyle coaches, I do believe there's a lot to be said if you can find out what makes you happy, and not just the things or anything like that, but yeah, if I could just sleep in till 9 and then I would rock this world. But getting up at 7:30 just kills me, So well, what are you working on? We're always trying to improve ourselves, and we've never fully arrived to this perfect person that we see in our head. What are you working on today, Lori, in your life?
Well, as far as happiness, I'm starting to incorporate a lot of yoga into my life, which is also another level of fitness, but I do think there's something that's not as intense as that's like a cardio class or on the elliptical or running. There's just something very peaceful about yoga. And I just went to this meditation class a couple of weeks ago, and I had the opportunity to sit down with the owner of the studio. And, there are moments when I'm walking through New York City, I feel very happy for the most part and pretty peaceful. But when people are looking down at their phones, and I'm sure you get this in Boston too, yeah. You cannot get through the streets because everyone is looking down at their phone, which, just makes me batty. That's the moment outside of Trader Joe's where I get most angry. But I even was talking to the owner of the meditation studio about this. I'm like, what do you do? How do you deal with this? And he said, I know exactly what you mean. And it's not your problem. It's not their problem. You just have to breathe and be beyond it. And I don't know. I'm just trying to not get upset about things like that. But it's almost like they're barriers. I keep saying how I've got so many things I want to do in the day, but it's like if you can't get there, and I just feel like all these, it's like dodgeball.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I just saw a tweet right before the show, and it was a list of 10 things that didn't exist 10 years ago. iPhone, Kickstarter, Instagram, like just all these things. I'm like, wow. And, out of the list of, there probably was 10 to 15 items on there. I'm like, yeah, I visit 90% of those daily. And 10 years ago, it was nowhere in my life. So,
well, it's funny when I think back to when I launched my business, because Facebook had just sort of taken off.
Yeah.
And I think I had 130 friends at that point, and which is nothing.
Right.
So I wanted to use Facebook as my platform to get my business off the ground. But 130 people, that's nobody.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
But like if you launch today and you have all those other tools to do it, it's just a whole different game.
It absolutely is. Yeah, I've got a friend. His daughter's 18. She's going off to college here next month, and she got denim jackets, started painting on them, put it on Instagram, and immediately people started saying, "Hey, how much are you selling that for?"
So amazing.
Yeah, and again, small town. One of my good friends, I have a big Jeep that's all decked out and everything, and I posted it was a couple of years ago, a picture of my Jeep of some new tires I got, and he was like, "Hey, do you have the old tires? I'd love to buy them." And that's how he and I met on Instagram. Like,
so cool.
I never would have thought. So it's a totally different world now, and it keeps changing, which is good. I do enjoy it. So.
Well, it's made the world a lot smaller, that's for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. How many degrees are we from Kevin Bacon now?
Right.
So. Well,
I dated him.
No, really?
No, I'm kidding.
Well, you never know. Like it is a small world. Well, so just kind of wrapping up here. What about parting guidance? Anything that you'd love to share with the audience? Some wisdom or anything like that.
Well, I would say I'm just thinking about what I've done with my life and how it's made me so much happier that. If you believe in an idea so strongly, you've got one shot to take this ride. And, even if you don't understand it, it's going to be a magical ride. So I say, trust the journey, surround yourself with positive people, and give up doubt, trust yourself, and bulldoze forward. And you could end up being happier than you ever imagined.
That's fantastic advice. Thank you. Well, in the show notes, I'm going to put your bio and all the links to your Facebook and everything like that. But what is the best way to connect with you? I mean, there's a billion ways, right? Today, what's the best way you prefer?
I'd say actually email is probably the best, and it's Lori Lori at cheeked CHEEKD.com.
Okay, great. And is there anything that you're currently working on, a project, a new project, or anything like that you'd like to talk about or promote?
Yes. So my partner and I actually launched a new business called Networked. It's like the word network with a D on the end, and it's in the Google Play Store. And it's just like Cheek that works via Bluetooth technology, but it's more like LinkedIn, but in the real world. So if you're looking for dating, so you can get on this do you have an iPhone or?
iPhone, yeah.
Okay, so we're not there yet, but we're soon launching on iPhone. But it's connects people at a conference or just for business purposes. So I say it's like LinkedIn, but in the real world.
Okay, no, that's good to know. And I can't tell you how many conferences I've gone, and it's like, how do you do this? So, no, that's cool. It's a great technology. Well, is there anything that we didn't cover, Lori, that you'd like to touch on before we end the show?
If everybody wants to see one of the most difficult things that I went through would probably be the Shark Tank episode that aired 3.5 years ago.
Oh.
That was another life-changing moment in time.
Wow. Tell me about that.
Well, yeah. So during my journey, I had hit a wall financially. I ran out of money. I made a lot of mistakes. I'd gotten bamboozled by 3 different web developers at the time, and I didn't know what to do. So I one day went on to ABC Shark Tank website and filled out an application. And a year later, I found myself on a television show. And again, they all told me to stop what I was doing because of the money that I'd made. It wasn't worth their investment. And it just fueled me to work even harder and succeed even more. So when I left, I ended up getting funded 6 times the money I asked for on the show. And we rebuilt our whole business into that app that is out today, the Cheeked app.
That's great. I mean, perseverance, right? I mean, just putting your mind to it, I think can achieve a lot. It's a great story.
Well, yeah, I definitely think that's the most epic part of my journey here to this day.
Yeah, no, I mean, that had to boost your confidence, like in so many different ways, like, I don't know, Mark Cuban and those guys, like, yeah, no, this is not going to work. Get out of here, so.
Well, they're married and they're older and they don't know what it's like to be a normal citizen in New York City looking for love, because it's impossible.
Right. Yeah, it's a different world. It really is. I mean, I've lived on the West Coast and East Coast, and even that's different, much less, being a different age or, a different time in your life or being married. So, yeah, I mean, our cultural paradigms are completely different around this country. I mean, you're from a small town, Kentucky. How different is that compared to where you live now?
Extremely.
So, yeah. Well, Lori, thank you for joining the show and sharing your journey with us and experiences and everything. I really appreciated your time today.
Okay, thank you for having me. I'll speak to you soon.
Talking to Lori today. It was just a couple of key takeaways. Her moving from a small town, Kentucky, to New York, one of the things that she had a hard time with, was building a social circle, especially moving to a city, like she said, of 8 million people. It's funny how she took that challenge and ended up developing an app that enables her to build friendships. And even she talked about this, they don't all have to be romantic. And even in her experience, and this is probably true for everyone, friendships tend to last a very, very long time, and you have multiple of those versus, from a romantic relationships. And, she just talks about mentoring as well, making sure you surround yourself by people that you want to become and how that can really level you up.
Thanks for listening to the UpRev Ninja podcast with your host, Tom Hudson. Navigate to our website at uprev.ninja today, where you will find additional resources to help you discover the best version of you. While you're there, join our newsletter and join the discussion on your favorite social media platforms. We've got some awesome guests lined up to share with us how they are becoming the best versions of themselves. Again, thank you for listening. Now it's time to go out and uprev your life.